just to give you a sense of what the implications are of that, I want to play some sound from Tim Wise at an Intelligence Squared debate. I think it was NPR. I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure. One of those debates. And this is from 2007, shortly after this ban on affirmative action policies in Michigan was passed. And he speaks of we'll put a link to the YouTube. The entire thing is worth listening to, because he doesn't even go into existing discrimination as we see it today. He speaks only essentially of this notion of having no race consciousness when dealing with past racism. Let's play this clip.
You know, it always amazes me to hear critics of affirmative action speak about this subject as if racial preference were something that were invented in the 60s to benefit people of color. Because in fact, whether we wish to acknowledge it or not, and of course we don't, the entire history of this country is the history of affirmative action for white folks like myself. And unless we begin by discussing that affirmative action and the impact that it has had, we engage in a discussion that is both ethically and practically irresponsible. Contrary to what Joseph tells you, this debate is about the extent to which racism still exists, because it is indeed the existence of that racism which necessitated affirmative action in the beginning and continues to necessitate it today. Whether we wish to acknowledge it or not, enslavement, Indian genocide, segregation did not only oppress people of color, they elevated white folks and provided us with opportunities that we did not in fact earn. The Homestead Act allowed whites to claim over 270 million acres of land for virtually nothing down, at a time when folks of color could not. Today, there are 40 million white folks descended directly from those who received that land giveaway, millions of them still living on the property. They owe their lives to affirmative action. Then there was the FHA home loan program, which for the first 30 years of its existence operated in a whites-only fashion, lending over $120 billion worth of government-backed housing equity to whites, thereby creating the white middle class. And in large measure, because of those preferences, the typical black college degreed couple starts out with less than 1/5 the net worth of the typical young white couple, because the latter of those has likely received the benefits of their family's prior head start, while the former are likely to have accumulated far less, having had less chance to do so. So against that backdrop, ending affirmative action would only further cement the systemic advantages for whites that have been in place for hundreds of years. It would be tantamount to favoring those 3 laps ahead in a 5-lap race, even though those who were ahead gained their head start as the result of an unfair process.
So, I mean, this notion of a lack of race consciousness is simply, it just belies common sense. And now what you're going to see, and what some are arguing, and as well on the left, is that this affords the opportunity of a place like University of Michigan to look at other factors, to provide affirmative action on other factors aside from race. Now, we know this exists already for advantaged people. More often than not, white people, and more often than not, rich people. There is an affirmative action policy that has always been in existence for legacy applicants. If your father or mother went to a university, you get a little boost, whatever the units they use in determining your worth in terms of being admitted to a college or a university. If you are a legacy, and particularly even more so if your parents have contributed to the endowment of the college, you get extra points. If you come from a good school, you get extra points. In some instances, if you come from certain regions that aren't a function of race but end up being from white regions, you get a boost. If you do well on standardized testing, which we know is also a function of your income, maybe you can afford to go to Kaplan and prep, you get a boost. There's all sorts of affirmative action that takes place in college admissions.